if we can help Japan and we can provide Japan something, that's our ongaeshi.
Today, our guest is Nofil, and he works for Profound Vision. It's a company that actually brings IT professionals into Japan because of his love for Japan and wanting to give back. So without any further ado, here's Nofil.
Thank you for having me on your show.
Where were you born?
I was born in Pakistan originally, but then my father used to work for the airline, and then my dad got a transfer back or transferred to Japan.
How old were you when that happened?
About 6 or 7 years old.
So you remember some of your time in Pakistan or England? Do you remember both?
More Pakistan than England because I was very small at that time.
Right.
So that's just vague memories because I've never really lived in Pakistan. So people ask me, how is Pakistan? I'm like, I don't know.
I don't know. But can you speak the language?
Yeah, my mom used to speak Urdu all the time. So we became trilingual, as to speak. So we became English, Japanese, Urdu language, or you want to call it Hindi or whatever you want to call it.
Do you ever have a chance to speak Urdu now?
Yeah. Basically, when I speak to my mom or when I speak to my sister or when I do some work back in Pakistan, I usually speak it, but that's about it. But at home, it's basically all Japanese.
Okay, so you didn't teach your kids? Or your child?
Well, it's something that's not to be taught. It's something that you can just pick up, I think. I mean, I don't think we have to sit there with our children to teach them any kind of a language. I guess the children feel the vibe at home. They see their...
Wait, your wife can speak Urdu too?
No. She just speaks Japanese only.
What about your daughter?
Japanese mostly because she's going down to a Japanese school.
Okay.
So, but, I think at times she understands what dad is saying in Urdu language or in English. And we turn CNN on all the time in the house. So ever since she was born, so, I think she can manage. She can understand. But, fluency and listening are two different aspects.
That's true.
So, I think she can understand it, but I think she doesn't have an opportunity to speak it.
So tell me, as a child, when you came to Japan, you went straight into St. Mary's.
That's right.
Okay, what kind of child were you? Were you more academic or were you more sports-minded?
I guess I was basically a very quiet kind of a kid at that time, if some of the people listening might disagree, but yes, it was true. And then because I was transferred over from Pakistan and it was a new environment for me, so it took me from 3rd grade to about 5th grade, it took me about 2 years just to settle in. And then after that, things just became very normal. I was Boy Scout. I joined Cub Scouts. I did all of these activities back at St. Mary's, playing soccer. Basically, my passion that I picked up at St. Mary's was baseball. And I follow that very, very vividly even today. I'm a very big fan of baseball.
What position?
I was a pitcher and basically in the right field.
In right field?
Yeah.
From what age did you start playing baseball? Or did you get the interest?
Age of 6. Age of 6 or 7. As soon as I joined St. Mary's, I was in the summer league baseball camp, and that's how I picked it up.
What about your dad? Did he like baseball?
No, he was too busy with mingling with people, with executives. We usually had a lot of executives come down to the house. We know that Prime Minister Nakasone, he came down to our house, when he was still alive.
But why was your father dealing with the politicians?
Because he was he was working for Pakistan International Airlines, and at that time they were trying to grow routes of Pakistan International Airlines going into different places. At that time, Pakistan International Airlines was flying from Tokyo to Manila, Manila to Bangkok, Bangkok to Karachi, and then they opened up another route, which was Tokyo to, I think, Beijing, and then from Beijing to Islamabad. Oh. So that was the golden years of Pakistan International Airlines.
Now, was your father the president of Pakistan?
Yes, he was heading Pakistan International Airlines here in Japan.
That was interesting. From what year was that?
I think it's 1977 to 1984, 85.
That was really a a bustling time. That's when Japanese were traveling everywhere.
Right.
And the airlines were trying to come in here.
That's right. That's right.
That's really
And then
big
he
for
became
airlines.
the head of Korea as well. So he became a station manager Korea and Japan, sitting in Japan. So he was controlling two stations.
Okay.
And but then the Korea chapter didn't work out that well. So it was just Japan after that.
Okay.
But yeah, so that's how we all ended up in Japan.
Okay. So going back into schooling, so you enjoyed baseball. What did you like academically? What did you find yourself focusing on?
Mostly social studies and I guess history to some extent. Yeah, I mean, I don't like typically dead people, or past, but history does teach you a lot. I mean, it basically shows how times revolve, how they come back, and so some of those things were very interesting to me. It wasn't back then, but it is now.
Right. So in high school, when you had to start to hone your ideas into what you're going to do now in the future, because you're going to go to college and everything, what'd you pick?
I picked economics.
And where'd you go to college?
I went down. I went down to Pakistan for about 4 years. I went down to St. Patrick's University.
What made you decide to go back to Pakistan?
My dad actually wanted me to do that.
Okay.
He said that once you get into your commercial life, or basically as you start working, you will have no chance to go back to Pakistan whatsoever. This is the only time that you can actually go back, learn the culture, learn the people, learn what it is, and then you can truly be a global academician or a global person.
Did he have brothers and sisters there?
Yeah, very little. My mom's brother used to live in New York, in Queens. So from my mom's side, that was the only family. My father's side, majority of the family was living in England or in Australia. So very few relatives.
So you were on your own when you went there?
Well, my grandmother was there,
Okay.
and
But that's your mother's mother or your father's mother?
both at that time they were both existed.
Oh, they were both there.
They were
Okay.
both there. So
Were they in close proximity too?
Oh
where you
yeah,
were going to
yeah.
school?
We have a very very close family at that,
Okay.
So we were there. But I after going back to Pakistan was a very big culture shock to me. Huge.
And what? Okay, tell me how. What was it like for you when you went back?
I didn't know the streets. I didn't know where I was supposed to go. I didn't know what I was going to be expecting. I mean, I was picking out things like towels and stuff like that to take back to Pakistan. And that's where my mom came in and said, you don't need all this stuff because it's all sold there. So as you can see, we had very limited kind of a connection to Pakistan.
So you weren't going over the summertime or anything. You'd been there.
Been there once in a while, but
once in
it's
a
only
while.
for like 2 weeks.
I see.
And then
You weren't
basically
living there, of
living
course.
there. So we really don't know. But this is like 4 years of my life going back, and I'm like, I don't really know what's going to happen, right? Am I going to be alive in 4 years, or what's going to happen? But what it turned out, Lance, is that I think that was the best decision that my dad had made for me. He's no longer alive. He passed away in 2020.
Okay.
But but I think that was one of the best decisions that he made for me, because I saw 2 or 3 cultures. I saw the American culture, I saw the Japanese culture, and I saw a culture from Pakistan. And it basically showed me on how different people are, but how similarities are of the same people.
Tell me about the culture shock when you went there at the beginning. I want to hear how you felt. What was it like?
Well,
And when did you start to feel like you were in the groove now and you were understanding more?
actually, I never picked up that groove in Pakistan.
You were there for how long?
Only for 3 or 4 years now.
And you never felt a part of it, like
No, I didn't. The mindset was very different. The people the atmosphere that we grew in was very different. It's like, you're living in the most advanced country on the planet, and then you're going down to Pakistan and trying to fit in there. But one of the things that I did learn in Pakistan, that the people were so nice, and people were so friendly, and everybody wanted to strive for the best, and everybody wanted to come out and basically say that they've done something. So a lot of competition, and people there are basically working for success all the time. A lot of my college mates, which I have known or went to school with. They are now partners at EY. There are some of them that are basically working in Morgan Stanley, New York. Some are basically in Goldman Sachs, and so it basically from one country and then all of a sudden going to a second country basically expanded a lot of my universe, and today on Facebook, I have friends from Pakistan, I have friends from America, I have a friend from England, I have friends from all over the place, and and that makes it very truly diversified. Me that's sitting here today.
Right. What'd you graduate with? What kind of degree?
Economics.
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 Did you get involved in any sports while you were there in Pakistan?
Cricket.
Cricket. That was the first time for you too, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
that was really the first time for me playing cricket. I've seen cricket.
But that's close to baseball, but not really.
Not really, but I think what the British basically say that cricket came first, baseball came second.
Basically, what I say. Yeah.
So I don't know how far that's true, but that could be one of the
I
cases.
kind of understand the game, but then I don't because it can last for so long.
And those are the fun 8 hours of your life. Trust me. At the end of the day, cricket is all math.
It's all math.
It's all math.
Meaning
That that everything is basically done on a calculation. I mean, like
oh, you said all math. Okay,
it's all math. I mean, baseball is basically more visual. I mean, you don't have to use any math in it.
Right.
But I mean, basically, if somebody has scored and if a team has come in with 166 runs, for example, or 266 runs, the opponent team has to think about how they're going to make 166 runs. So it's a lot of math in there.
Wow.
At least that's what I feel. But it's a lot of fun.
It's the first time to hear it described like that. It's all math.
That's the way I kind of felt it.
Okay. So then you leave Pakistan, you finally graduate, you leave to do what? And who'd you work with?
No, and I started work for Smith Barney.
In Pakistan?
No. In Tokyo, I came back to Tokyo to do my Shusho Katsudo, which is basically new job hunting for freshmen. And at that time, the bubble era was had completely been finished. There were no jobs available.
What year was that then?
1980.
Oh, 80.
1993, 1994.
90 something, yeah.
And there were no jobs for graduates. I applied to 54 companies.
And they weren't taking them?
No, it had nothing to do with your university or anything like that. They just weren't taking anybody. And at the end of the day, I got a job offer from IBJ, which was Industrial Bank of Japan at that time. It was one of the biggest banks. And the second job offer that I received was from Smith Barney. And I took Smith Barney, because it sounded very promising. And number two, they were going to send me down to New York. And as a 23-year-old going down to New York and living there and learning the business of securities was so appealing to me. And so I went down to Smith Barney. I stayed with Smith Barney for many years. I have a lot of people to thank. I don't know how many people watched the podcast. There was Fred Reidenbach. There was my branch manager, who actually took me in, and I think I was the only person that they took that year. Wow. Only one.
And they did send you to New York?
They did send me to New York.
Right away. So you got it. So they did
I
what
got
they
it.
promised.
Yeah, as promised, they sent me down to New York.
And how long were you in New York?
For about maybe 2 years or so. Started out, I mean, in the beginning, they wanted me to push down to every department. So I went down to operations, and I went down. And before going to New York, they sent me down to Santa Rosa, which was in Napa Valley. At that time, Napa Valley was very unknown to Japan. And so I went down to Napa Valley, stayed there for a couple of weeks. And then from there, I flew down to New York. And my career started out that way. And taking care of U.S. equity, I met great people in the scheme of things, while we were doing that. And it was very, very intriguing. I learned a lot of, I am who I am today because of that.
How long were you with them? How long?
For about maybe 6 years.
6 years.
6 years or so.
And you ended up in the same position? Were you in the same?
Yeah, it was
same
mostly
area,
on the same, on the same side.
Right. So you're right there on Wall Street.
Right. I was on Wall Street.
Yes, you had to be.
Yeah.
So you had to be to the the New York Stock Exchange and the American Stock Exchange.
No,
right?
New York, NYSE.
Okay, I see.
Just NYSE. So at that time, I don't know, people that go down to New York today, they can't really enter the floor. They can only see the building from the outside. It was sad, and I think I don't have to go into details, but I literally walked the NYSE floors. I was taking tickets from traders and passing them on to the pits. It was quite an interesting adventure of my life, or basically
Because didn't they have different colored rooms, like the blue room and the red room? Was that how it went?
No, we were on the main floor.
On the main floor, right?
The main floor.
Right.
So that's what you see every morning on CNN.
On CNN.
That the bell goes off and everybody starts ticking. So, but the hours are very long. You have to be there about 8:30. Market starts at 9, ends at 4 p.m. So you basically stand out and eat lunch. In the Nikkei, it's very different because they have 1 hour for lunch. NYSE doesn't stop. It continues trading. And so we did that. Back on, so Smith Barney was quite an experience for me at that point.
Did you get married during that time?
No. I was single.
You stayed single.
Okay. That was the right choice.
Okay. And then when you came back, you came back to do what?
I came back to Tokyo. I was taking care of orders that were basically to be executed on the NYSE, and basically did that. And after that, so basically it's just basically called an equity trader, or equity sales trading, or operations, or whatever you want to call it. That's basically what it is.
And from there, where'd you go?
From there, my adventure started out. Then I went down to ING Baring. ING Baring basically collapsed. We all know that. And then from there, I think I went down to HSBC.
How long were you at ING Baring?
Until the time it collapsed, for about maybe 2 or 3 years.
2 or 3 years, okay.
And then HSBC. Then HSBC shut down in Japan. So all of us.
Were you there with Paul Hoff?
No, Paul Hoff was in the asset management division.
Okay. So
we were in the HSBC Premier.
Okay.
HSBC
Where was that
Premier
located in Japan? I'm just thinking
Nihonbashi.
Nihonbashi. Okay.
Nihonbashi.
Well, Paul was in Nihonbashi too.
That's right. He was in the asset section.
Right.
No, it's a whole building.
Same whole building.
It's a whole building. So they were in the asset. The asset management still exists as of today.
Right.
And basically the Premier side, which is I don't remember which floor it was, but we were on the Premier side.
So how long were you with HSBC?
Until they shut down.
So how many years was that?
That was about maybe 2 or 3 years.
Are you married now?
I'm married now.
Is that where you got married?
No.
It was before that?
I think it was before that. I don't exactly remember the year when I got married, but it was, I think, before or a little bit close to HSBC or something like that.
All right. So right after HSBC, where did you go?
After HSBC shut down, there was about 200 or something people that were basically looking for jobs. A lot of them went down to Japanese banks, Aozora. A lot of us basically, came down to do different things. So I got a job in Apple.
Okay, doing what?
I was in the business department for Apple.
Okay.
So the iPhone 5 and the iPhone 5S, which some of you may remember, we did the launch for iPhone 5, iPhone 5S.
What was your job with Apple?
Was basically looking after the business divisions, or basically business customers.
What made you go into Apple anyway? You're finance.
I know, but given the fact that HSBC shut down and we were looking for jobs, and I applied for Apple, and they happily took me in.
All right.
So I went down to Cupertino. At that time, Steve Jobs was running the firm, and spent about maybe 2 or 3 years, and then I basically walked out of Apple after that.
Okay. To do what?
Actually, the culture of Apple is great, and but they are basically they can come in shorts, they can come into t-shirts, they can come into anything, and I was basically, ever since 23, we were basically more wearing suits.
Did that affected you?
Yes, it did. I mean, for tech people, it really doesn't affect them. But if you're coming in from a finance background, and if you're used to wearing suits and being there, at about 7 a.m. in the morning, every day, listening to market calls and starting with the market starts, and all of a sudden you're coming into a company where it's very open, and it's got a great culture. It's one of the best companies on the planet. I personally think that, I actually wanted something different.
Okay.
So after that, I went down to EY, Ernst Young, and I was a director there. And I was looking after I was the director in the business, in the tax division. And we were doing basically marketing and business development for Shin Nihon or EY. And then we did that and basically stayed with EY for about maybe a couple of years. And then after that, I came over, did a little bit of transitions in there. But then at the end, I came down to a company called Capital Asset Management.
Yes.
And Capital Asset Management, I basically learned on how the asset management works. So from banking or from securities to banking to tax to asset management. And this transition gave me an idea on basically how things work.
Okay. In the financial world.
In the financial world and in the corporate world.
Okay.
We by working in all these companies, and because at the times that when companies were shutting down or were basically moving away from Japan, or XYZ reasons or whatever it is, it basically gave me a pool of wealth. So a lot of people basically pretend they know what asset management is, or basically what securities is, or
After working in just one section of it.
right.
I see.
So it basically gave me a whole hillside.
Right.
And so I am here because of all of these aspects.
You got a chance to see what the left and the right hand are doing.
Right.
Most people are they really are. They're tunnel vision into one area. They know a whole lot about very little.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Yeah. Well, you got to find out about each area.
Right.
That's interesting. And you spent more than a couple of years in every single field you were in, right?
Yes.
Oh, that's good. That's good. So where does that leave you today?
Well, in 2019, we heard a report that in Japan, the Ministry of Economy and Trade has come out with a very alarming report, which will affect every single person that's listening to the podcast, or even remotely involved or even not involved. Is that by 2030, in Japan will run out of IT engineers. There are no IT engineers in Japan, very little. And when I heard this report that came out, we said that there's something needs to be done, and we wanted to give back to Japan. There's something that we had to do to give back to Japan. What could we do? I mean, Japan has raised us, has given us all of the facilities, has given us the security. My daughter, which basically goes down to Japanese school, we owe it as foreigners. I think we owe it that if we like Japan, we should give back something to Japan. So I took this report and I went down to my boss at Capital Asset Management, and I said, listen, see this, we just got this from the Ministry of Economy and Trade. And it's like, yeah, and Japan is going to have a very serious problem. And so I resigned Capital Asset Management in 2019, 2019, end of 2019. And all of us, when I say all of us, there's a lot of people that are involved. We started out a company called Profound Vision. Profound Vision's basically main aim is basically how to supply IT engineers to Japan. Some can call it a recruitment firm, some can call it a consulting firm, some can call it whatever you want to think about it. But one of our prime ideas is to bring in the IT engineers to Japan and supply them to the Japanese corporations. One of the things we learned in this process, and we spent 3 years of developing this process, not 1 year, not 2 years, 3 years. And we learned that a lot of Japanese companies are now hiring non-Japanese speakers. Companies such as Rakuten or even PayPay or Mercari, or you might want to call it, there's some other companies that are growing. Yes, the small, medium industry businesses are basically trying to, they don't have any English capability within their firms. that can hire the non-Japanese speakers, but it's coming around. So all of us basically, we decided to do this. So I'm the COO of Profound Vision, and
How long has this company existed?
well, the
How many years
company
is it?
actually started out in 2009.
2009.
Right. My wife used to run Profound Vision.
She used to run.
Run. Yeah, it was basically, she had this company that didn't used to do much with it. She created a company in 2009 as a private, as a sole proprietor company.
Who were you working with then in 2009?
I think I was with HSBC or something like that.
HSBC, okay,
Yeah.
so that's the time, okay. And you see her, and you say, that's a good idea. I think I'll marry this woman. No,
No, actually, she started out the company when she was there. But the idea of Profound Vision is basically she's from Yamagata, and she wanted to, take out the Yamagata products like rice or nihonshu or cherries or peaches down to, Singapore or just something on the side. So the company was existent in 2000 from 2009, but it never really, it was just something that, she used to just do as a hobby.
okay.
So when I came in and when we came in 2019, we changed it from a sole proprietor to a kabushiki gaisha. We have now 24 shareholders. We have about maybe 9 advisors to the board, and we have a president, a chairman, staff, and everything. So Profound Vision, that was her company, is no longer. She is basically a little bit in control.
You
But
took
we
took
it away.
That's what men always do. We find a woman take it, we take it away. Okay.
But but now that Profound Vision has grown, into a small medium business, we are working with the government of Japan. We're working with corporations of Japan in order to deliver the IT engineers to Japan.
Well, how would you say around how many have you been able to bring in during this time?
Well, it was. Don't forget that we had COVID.
That was soon. 2019 is when it started.
When it started, and for 3 years it was COVID. So so we spent 3 years in basically preparing ourselves on how we will do this. We have created a system called FITE. It's simply FITE. It basically stands for Foreign IT Engineers. Okay. It's just short form of Foreign IT Engineers. Stands for FITE, FITE.jp. And people go in and and people can find out the IT engineers that they need, and so everybody's happy. So we don't deal with just like a normal IT engineer. We do, but we look at basically more like AI engineers, data scientists.
So do they have to actually come here physically, or can they be online and be hired to do it from wherever they are remotely?
In some cases, yes. In some cases, no. It depends. For example, if the IT engineer is hired on a regular basis, they have to get the insurance package from MHLW or Ministry of Health, Labor and Welfare. And in order to get that package, or basically get the insurance, the person has to have a visa for Japan and has to come physically into Japan in order to do this. So we had a lot of help, a lot of people that basically assisted us in these 3 years. We couldn't have done it alone. If I had a list of people, I would go on for hours. But there was a lot of people, and we have still long ways to go. But if we can help Japan and we can provide Japan something, that's our ongaeshi.
That sounds marvelous. Well, see, just before this podcast, we started talking about your group is going to be coming in.
Yeah, I will try to bring them in.
But when are they going to be coming in? How many people are we talking about?
Well, we can have about maybe four, or maybe somebody online as well. We can bring in 4 or 5. So
then maybe we wouldn't be able to do it here. We have to find a place where we could do it, where we could have a monitor if we're going to do that. But if we're going to sit down and do it through the system I have set up, then we could do it here and have the table, have it set up a little bit differently.
Right.
And make
That'd be great. Each person will have their own thoughts about it, how they came in, how they did it. A lot of the people that have come in are basically experts of you know of their own league. They're very well respected, and almost as you see the team coming in, you would know half of them anyway.
No, Phil, you started this because your wife started it actually. So you had to recruit the people to get them in.
Yes. Or basically
Okay.
not recruit, but
You
at
basically
least
convince them
to please come in.
Come in. Because your wife had set it up, and I wouldn't think that she'd be the one to do it because she was doing it as a hobby.
She was doing it as a
She's wanting
hobby.
to get some products out of her local area, you know, out a little bit more expanded.
Right.
So you came in and said, this is a good idea. Wait, why don't we expand this and make it more of a situation where we're actually getting more people to come in instead of going out?
That's right.
Let's get people, IP people to come in, since you heard that
The report.
the report that came out. That's interesting. That is
See,
so
nothing, you don't know anything that will change your mind or your life from anything that you can cross across. I mean, I was not thinking of leaving banking and basically coming in and bringing IT engineers to Japan. I never thought about it. I mean, well, who knows? But I mean, it was something of a spark that basically gave us that idea. And today we have, certifications from the Tokyo Metropolitan Government. We have certifications from the Ministry of Economy and Trade. I mean, our company has a lot of certifications. That we are a good, viable company. I mean, I don't know if a lot of the speakers here or the listeners.
Well, that means a lot in Japan because they really do their due diligence before they give you anything.
That's right.
And they make sure they do not play here.
Yeah.
When you get that in Japan and they say that you're viable, that you can't get a better stamp of approval.
Right. So I mean, we had to prove that our company is viable, and we had to sustain that. We have just not opened up a firm, but a company that has been certified from the Tokyo Metropolitan Government or from the government of Japan. And that took a long time. And exactly like you said, the due diligence that went in was...
And usually Japan considers that, I think that's almost synonymous with time. If you can't gammon, you can forget about trying to do stuff here.
That's right. And working with the Japanese government is not easy.
So take me back a little bit more, Nofil. When did you told me when you got that report? When you got that report, that made you think that. But what made you think to use your wife's profound vision company to do it? Well, instead of a different name.
Well, in Japan, the company's history matter a lot. When you go down to banks, when you go down to clients, if you go down to a company saying that your company started out 2 days ago, good luck. Coming in with a company that started in 2009 that has absolutely zero or spotless record means a lot. And when clients or the governments or the banks, when we go to them and we tell them that our company has been there from 2009, and even though we turned it into a company limited in 2019 or 2019, it's an easier sell. So that was the main reason.
Right, because to start a brand new, just taking you
the trust factor is
right. Exactly.
The trust factor is not there.
And she already had that.
Yeah,
she'd already built that. Yeah. Well, Nofil, before I end the podcast, there's a question I'd like to ask.
Sure.
If you were to go back in time, if you could possibly go back in time and talk to the younger Nofil and give him advice, what advice would you give him, and how old would he be?
It's an interesting question. I actually would not go back and tell the younger Nofil any advice, because I think the path and the careers that he has taken is who I am today. The younger Nofil never got into any trouble with the police or with anything or any establishments whatsoever. And I owe it a lot to my dad, and I owe it, of course, to my mom and dad. But I owe it to a lot of my friends. The trust factor, the people that I met, over the years are the people that I really want to thank. And I don't have to go into the names. You guys know who you guys are.
The St. Mary's is so tight. They're so tight.
And my dad always used to say that live a life that is full rather than a longer life. So, a full life is basically very difficult to achieve. A longer life, people can achieve. So that's
So
something that I actually look forward to.
Could have been better said. Thank you so much, Nofil.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I want to thank all of you for watching this podcast. Make sure you press like and subscribe. And never forget, it's all on loan, so continue to reach for the stars.
Because you're too blessed to be stressed.